Hi, welcome to my podcast, Learn a Multi-Language with Eureka. Are you someone that can speak Chinese, Japanese, or is simply interested in learning a new language? You're in the right place. Follow along for an easy way to learn 2, 3, or even 4 languages at once. Hi, today's episode is about Chinese and Japanese words that have really similar character shapes but have really small differences. You should be aware of this so that when you learn Japanese, you don't make these silly mistakes. The overall shape of these characters are actually pretty similar. It's just that the little details, as I said before, are a little different. First up, we have bone. In Chinese, we say 骨头. And in Japanese, there are 2 pronunciations. The first one is 骨子, and the second one is 骨. All of this means bone. What's interesting about this character is that in Chinese, there's a little box inside of the larger box on the top, which lays on the left. So right over here. But in Japanese, the little box inside of the larger box lays on the right. I honestly don't really have a concrete explanation for this, but maybe when the Chinese words were brought over to Japan, there was a mistake. And then they accidentally wrote this tiny little box on the right side instead of left. Again, this is just theory, speculation, without any kind of evidence, but it's just something funny to think about. Next up, we have love. The character for love in Chinese is pronounced I, and in Japanese, it is also pronounced I. Interesting, right? But what's different about these characters is that the Japanese kanji has a little shin or kokoro inside of it, while the Chinese doesn't. In my opinion, the Japanese I is much more interesting because love always requires your heart, but in Chinese it doesn't have the heart. I guess this is an example of how simplified Chinese can be a demerit sometimes because it takes away the meaning from the words. But I'm still glad that I learned simplified Chinese because traditional Chinese seems like a lot of effort. Next, we have ki or qi. In Chinese, we pronounce this as qi, and in Japanese, we pronounce this as ki. This has multiple meanings because it's kind of a word with a lot of nuance, but the gist of it is either the first meaning can be condensed as will, or just somebody's will to do something. It also means breath, somebody's breath. The part that's different about this word is pretty obvious. Here, in Chinese, there is no little x, but in Japanese, there is. Maybe to help you remember it better, this little x here is pretty similar to the x that is done in Kung Fu, when you try to shield yourself from your opponent, as a form of defense. The last word we have here means virtue. In Chinese, this is pronounced as de, and in Japanese, this is pronounced as toku. The difference in this word is that in Chinese, there is a little horizontal stroke in the middle, and in Japanese, there is no such stroke. I also don't really have a good explanation for this. Again, maybe when Chinese words or characters were brought over to Japan, maybe the people who started writing them forgot the little line in the middle. What you just need to be careful of is to be mindful of this difference when learning Japanese. When I learned Japanese, I learned it with Chinese. So some characters I actually got off points because I wrote the Chinese version instead of Japanese for the characters, which is a pretty funny story. Hopefully this won't happen to you, as I just explained some of the more detailed differences in characters in Chinese and Japanese. Thanks for listening to today's episode. Hope to see you in the next one. Find me on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, and on my website. Thanks for listening.